Hello, dear students. So, welcome to the first video of this semester. So, as promised, I have, decided that let me start this semester with discussing how, or discussing about the evaluation of media content. As in the very first class, we have already gone through the entire course structure and what are the different topics that we are going to discuss regarding, the literacy, media literacy, news and information literacy thing. So, I just thought that why not to start with evaluation of media content because that is the very first step to give a very critical look at the media content. So while discussing about the evaluation of media content, it's very important to pose some of the serious questions and very common questions that must come to your mind. uh, how to evaluate media content, why to evaluate media content, and what are the things that we need to evaluate while looking at the circulation of various contents in the media. So let's get started with this video and let's see what do you have, or what I have for you in the next slide. So the very first question, and it is a very common question, in order to develop the tendency to, uh, you know, give a critical look at the media content, it's important that you ask yourself that why do we need to evaluate, media content, and especially in today's, digital age with the rapid rise of the digitalization, it has become more important question, and you cannot avoid this very question uh, when you are learning about how to become news and information literate, right? So the very first reason about evaluating media content is to look at what kind of different contents are circulating in the media at present, right? And you are very it is very obvious that you are getting this view that how overflow of information has become one of the serious problem for us, and which has led to the competition of two very concept. One is the screening of the information, and another is the scheming of the information. So it is no more an age where you are only limited, to the newspaper reading, or your entire perception is, limited to the television screen. So we have come forward from all those traditional setting of media today. So our views and our eyes, our perceptions are very much it has broadened our perspective with the rise of digitalization, which has given or which has led to the development of different digital devices, the making the large television screen to a miniature mobile devices. So we are very much we have become very much say you can say we have become very much addicted to the screen these days, especially the mobile screen. We are all the time we are scrolling down the social media. In social media we have various accounts in various social media platforms today. So it's not possible in such an age where you have to maintain your presence in different platforms and you go through each and every information you know very attentively. It's not possible in today's age. So screening information means go through each and every information attentively and try to find out whether that information has the correct fact or facts and figures, or does that information reliable, or is that information making sense, is that information is contextual, is that information bringing some value to the society. So it's not possible for us to go through each and every content that is circulating in different in various media platforms today. So that is why it has made human beings, the digitalization, the emergence of different digital devices, it has uh, improved the or you can say it has developed a new tendency of scheming. through all the contents. We don't have the time to go through each and every content attentively, right? So we just skim through all the contents, and which is a serious problem for us. And that makes us fall into the trap of, misinformation or fake news. All these things have, uh, taken the advantage out of, the development of this tendency in ourselves today. So this is why, this is the very first reason why it becomes very important for us to evaluate media content. Why? And why do we evaluate media content? We evaluate media content in order to get the right content, in order to, look at the right content, in order to, uh, find out what is the value of the content in it. And with the rise of and with the shift of media landscape from the traditional setting to the modern digital age today, it has become more important. You can't avoid the importance of, screening through the information. You can't, skim all through the contents. It will, devastate. It will devastate the entire information society if you just go on skimming through all the contents today. That is why, it is important to evaluate the media content in order to always win in the competition, the contest between the screening and the skimming. The screening should be given much importance in that regard. The second point that I feel is, uh, why do we need to evaluate media content uh, is to find out the difference between what is information and what is non-information. So it's very similar. You can only do that while, when you can screen through each and every content, right? You have to find out what is the information. You have to find out and what is non-information. So the inform you have to, draw a line of difference between information and non-information, in fact between news and non-news also, right? So we have to develop this contextual reading of the information, of the content, the message, that in different media platforms that we are observing, right? We have to relate. We should not restrict ourselves to whatever we look at, right? We have to go beyond that. We have to look at what are the different contexts related to this particular message. And this is how we try to find out the difference, whether this particular message has, rich information or not, right? And sometimes that particular message may misinform you. So we should be aware of that, misinformation thing. So it's very important, in order to find the difference between the information and misinformation or the non-information, which do not have any, information in it, which is just to, mislead the people. So in that case, it becomes very important that you evaluate the media content in today's age. In fact, drawing out the line of difference between news and non-news. And I'm glad that this semester, even I tried it in my last semester, and students, they were, very excited about news activity that I took uh, as their assignment, where they have to understand that what is news. So in order to, detect what is fake news, you don't always have to go after, detecting what is not news. It's very important, first of all, to get the picture very clear about what is news. Okay, what are the different features of news? You cannot say that the very traditional, definition of news and the very objectives of news that we got from different media scholars, decades and decades ago, those are no more relevant today. It will be very, it is becoming more and more relevant as the uh, media landscape is fast changing today. And that is why, you will be enjoying this very activity that I have for you as an assignment. We will be discussing in the class, which is about news activity, where you just have to find out that what are the essential elements, and what are the different skills that you need in order to detect what is news, and in order to find out the importance of news value. Okay, so these are some of the factors that I feel, you need to understand, that these are the different valuable points, and different, different important segments which comes when a question is being posed to you, that why do we need to evaluate media content. Now, how do we evaluate media content? So this is again, the second very common question that we need to ask ourselves when, evaluating or criticizing media content. So how do we do that? Is there any method, or is there any approaches that we should follow while evaluating the media message that is getting, circulated in so many, platforms today? So the very first thing that I will, I feel that, which is very much important, I believe, I have always looked the media message in this particular way, whether that particular message has importance, whether that particular message has value. Now, when I say about value, definitely that message must have rich information. That message must have a news value in it. Okay. Other than that, it is also important to keep in mind that every message must be a futuristic in nature. So it should not always, wrap up everything within a one particular context. I don't believe in that. Okay. I personally feel that in order to find out the very value of the content, the very, importance, in order to draw out what importance does the media content have, you cannot limit that content to a particular context. So we will be discussing in our second class on Monday about news content and context. So I will be discussing more elaborately in that class. But yeah, you have to remember in mind that you do not have any, value for the content unless you consider, different context to that content. So what are the different contextual readings of a particular message should look like? So we'll be discussing that elaborately in our second class. But then yes, you should keep in mind that, the contextual reading of a particular media message is very important for us. And when this very question is being asked, that how do we evaluate media content, and is there any particular method or approach to follow while evaluating media content, i I will, I will definitely say that there is no particular approach or particular method to evaluate media content. Rather, I will go on, suggesting that you should not always rely on cross-checking the fact. You should not always try to compare between what you have published, what is the information that the published, content has, and what uh, it did not have while when the content was not published. So you should not compare a content between the pre-published and the post-published context. So every content is being, created in its own context. It has its own context, but it also has some related context. That is true. But the very, clarity comes out when you don't find any reason, and you go on checking the facts, only the information what that message contain. So I believe that it's not only about the facts and the figures in the message that you must rely on in order to evaluate a media content. It is far beyond that. And as a journalist or as a reporter, we must try to, find out the truth of the fact, truth of the information. Okay, so it's not only about that, okay, this particular news content and this particular message has, very boldly represented information from different statistical reports or different government reports or non-government reports. So it's not only about the reports. It's not only about the numbers. It is also about, truth, finding out the truth, and truth about the fact, whether those facts are true, whether those facts are not misrepresented. So you should also try to find out that. So I would like to share, I was reading a recently released book, The Media and Me. It is published by Censured Project, and there, they have evaluated, how. most of the US, United States users, okay, media users, how do they, uh, follow the media content, or what are the different approaches that they follow while evaluating the media content? So they come out with two different approach. One is, one is very entertainment content, celebrated content, and another one is where you don't uh, you always want to avoid the media content. Okay, so which is not very encouraged to go through. For example, say, if someone has come across the media contents which are violative in nature, which are violent in nature, or which are which has some content which is disturbing for the audiences, then suddenly uh, people encourage not to use or not to go through those media content, or try to avoid those media content. So this is a kind of approach, uh, that most of the United States users they go with. They say it as in avoiding the media content, and while avoiding those media content, they are suggesting that we should at one point of time stop looking at the media contents which are disturbing in nature, which are violent in nature, which contains pornographic contents, pornographic characteristics, which contains uh, say say indecent content. So all this kind of contents, the media when they circulate it, so you should avoid that. So this is how one approach where most of the United States users they follow it. Secondly, they also follow that they use this very celebrated approach of using media content. So in this approach, everyone is encouraged to use every medium of media where new and new contents are emerging daily, and you would like to test each and every content. And while doing so, you are encouraging to use more and more media content. So in both approaches, you'll find that these users, they are always restricted, or their perception is always limited to the screen, or to a particular space where either you have to avoid looking at the media content, or you have to you have to look at the media content. But when we are talking about criticizing media content, or critically looking at the media content, evaluating the media content, we must go beyond the screen. It's not only about whether to avoid or whether to accept the media content, it's also about why to think about why these media contents are circulating in different platforms. What are the different reasons? So these are the different approaches that United States, according to that study, most of the United States users are following through this kind of approaches. But while just keep in mind that when you are asked that how to evaluate media content, you do not have any approach. Don't limit yourself to one particular approach. That will that will take you away from the very objective of understanding what is there beyond the media content. Okay, it's not only about finding out the good and bad. It's not only about detecting the whether the facts and figures represented in that message is correct or not. It's also about finding out the truth about the facts that are represented in that particular message. Okay, now the third very common question that I would like to discuss here is about what what to evaluate media in media content. What do we actually look at while evaluating the media content? What we must look at, right? We so as I already said that you should not be very concerned about the good and the bad content of the media. So that's a very, I will say, that's a very uh, that's a very you can say immature way to look at the media content. So as a media literate, if you want to become a media literate, you must be matured enough to understand that it's not only about, looking at what is bad and what is your good media content. What are the advantages and disadvantages of media content, of a particular media content? So you should not you should not be concerned about that, at least in this digitalization age. In fact, we must look at the quality of the media message. What is the standard of that content, and in what context that particular content has been, represented, or in what context that particular content is getting circulated today. You must need to understand, all the factors which are giving, push up to all these contents to get circulated in the, in various platforms today, right? So we should not always look at the content quantitatively. So when I say quantitatively, you are always relying on the facts and figures, the numbers. Again, I'm again, repeating myself. You can say that you should not measure a content quantitatively. You should not always go through the, content, cross checking whether this content has a reliable information from this particular report, that particular report, this particular website, or that particular website. But you should also have your own stand for that particular content. What kind of, stand do you have as a reporter, as a, you know as a media professional, as a media academician? So you must look at the quality of the content. And when you say quality, you are talking about the value. You are talking about the importance of that media content in the contemporary age. Okay, and you do that by investigating the importance of that media content. Okay, so this is how we go through, or this is what we should look at, while evaluating the media content. So thank you very much, dear friends. I will, come with next video, and we'll discuss more about how to give a very critical look at media content. Till then, thank you so much.